Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope your week is going well. It's another episode of The Big Boys right here on the Pregame Show YouTube channel. I'm Tolly Carr. You know, as I look at this lineup right here, we might turn into the Gray Boys. just look at that. Look at that. Gray. With that comes a wealth of knowledge. Fellas, we're going to get into the game that we saw this weekend. The close victory over Arizona State. The Stanford Cardinal is on the way for Friday. We always kick it off with our man, Carl Reed, down there hanging on the corner. Carl, you caught the game this weekend like the rest of us, man. Me and Neely kind of kidded. It's always going to be a roller coaster ride, it seems, with Colorado. What were kind of your immediate takeaways from that game that you saw?
Well, the consistency of Deion Sanders is something we continue to talk about every week. And really, at the end of the game, you win it because Colorado has Deion and Arizona State doesn't. That's really what it comes down to and boils down to. He's proven consistently that if you give him an opportunity to have the ball late in the game with a chance to win the game, that he can deliver in that situation. Still a lot of struggles in keeping him upright. He's still facing a lot of sacks and a lot of pressure, but he's finding a way to win those games that Colorado was supposed to win. And he's found a way to win a couple that people didn't expect him to win. So he is continuing to be the shining star in this situation. Travis Hunter will be back within the next couple of weeks, so that's obviously going to give them a huge boost down the stretch as well. But that game was about Deion Sanders and Mata, the kicker, making the big kick in the end.
You nailed it there again, brother Coach Carl Reed. And speaking of those two players, the consistency of Deion Sanders, the belief that Coach Prime has in Alejandro Mata, and more importantly, the belief that Mata has in himself. Here we have two players from HBCU, Jackson State, performing at this level in the Power Five on national TV week after week and showing that they can do the same thing they did in that conference in this conference. And I tell you, man, you talk about the consistency of Deion Sanders. Not only does he believe and his team believes, it won't be long before the opponent starts to believe, because week after week, they still continue to leave too much time on the clock and give the ball right back to him only to lose.
Carl, and we saw Brady mode in one play. He goes to Antonio there, his big receiver, right off the top on that drive. What made, if you're looking at it from an Arizona State, perspective, or, just looking at it as an analyst, it's like, man, we all knew they had to go down the field quickly. How did that play seem to work so easily?
Well, you're either going to bring pressure and play man on the perimeter, or you're going to play zone and you're going to drop guys. They probably felt like they could get to the quarterback with a four-man rush, which is what teams have been able to do really all season. And so they played a soft zone on the back. He found the whole shot in the zone up the sideline, and he made a big-time throw, and then they made a kick to win the game. But when you're going to play defensively, like I said, you're either going to bring pressure and play man, or you're going to drop people and rush 3 to 4 guys and play zone. And he finds the holes no matter what the situation is.
Yes, Deion has the patience, man, to just read that defense and see what's taking place back there. And he has the accuracy to put the ball into tight windows. Neither one of those were necessarily needed on that play. I think what happened, Carl and Tolly, is that you are what you put on film. And there has not been a lot of film on Javon Antonio. And so while people are in the secondary looking for Zay Weaver, number 10, looking for Fleazy, Jimmy Horn, number 5, here goes number 4, Javon Antonio, right down that sideline, and you missed that big body. If not for his feet getting tangled, he actually would have scored on that play.
Guys, we talk about this every week. Both the offensive and the defensive line, we see the struggles during the game, but in their wins, it always seems like when you get to that fourth quarter and it's like, guys, we need protection on this play, or defensive line, hey, can we get a couple of sacks? Both lines came through late in the game, despite the struggles early on.
I think that in those situations, it's easier to prepare yourself for 1 or 2 series, especially late in the game, because you have a real feel right now at that point for what the other team is doing, and you can play more mental reps and have your mental game kind of help take over for you too. But Shador gives you a lot of confidence. You block him for a guy that you believe if you just give him a little bit of time, he's going to get it done for you. And so I think that gives them a tremendous advantage in those situations.
And part of that confidence, Coach, is that he doesn't give them criticism. I talked to Shador about the woes of his offensive line, and one thing that he assured me is like, Neely, I believe in him, and I believe in him because I know when I actually got to have them, I can talk to them in that huddle. I can talk to them on the bench and say, okay, guys, I need it right now. Give it to me right now. Give me all you got right now. And they know how to deliver on those particular plays, giving me the time to make the play. So he's not really caught up in the number of times he's been sacked or everybody else that's beaten up on his own line. He's still there in the huddle encouraging them and letting them know, like, I understand we failed on that last play, but give me this play right here.
You know, and I have noticed that. Like, I kind of watch and see sometimes, you know, when he hops up, is he going to go bark at those guys or give them an earful? I'm not going to say he's never done it, but I'm looking for it, and I just don't see it. Carl, how important is that when you have a young unit? You have players in there maybe at the beginning of the season you didn't think you were going to depend on as much. Does that still give them confidence as they try to work their way through?
I think it helps not to rattle them because I know quarterbacks and elite quarterbacks that would have put some of them in the full Nelson for some of the blocks that they miss, and they would be very, very critical of them. So there's elite quarterbacks that would be on them probably more than a coach. And so the fact that he doesn't handle them like that, though, I think it adds to their calmness in some of those moments because they're not moving very frantically. He's handled them much better than some of the other premier quarterbacks would if they were in a similar situation.
Amen. And he also knows this is what I got. You know, there's nothing on the bench that I can sub out for. You know, we can't open that transfer portal during the middle of a game. We're not, signing recruits, late in the third quarter. This is what it is. So I have to build these guys up. Now, juxtaposed to that, he does have a higher expectation from his receivers. And you will see him on the sideline, for lack of a better word, chastising them for a drop or a busted route or that kind of thing. Because one thing he knows, he has a higher degree and caliber of talent at receiver and also has some depth behind it. So the expectation is greater. Shador knows that with this offensive line, man, as we've discussed on the big boys ad nauseum, this is the best it's going to get during this season. The only way it gets better is in the postseason through the portal and recruitment. And so right now, there's no need to beat them up during the game. Let me build them up because I need them for the next play.
Carl, you had some time there in Boulder. You were hanging out with Neely since the last time I talked to you. I think Neely kind of confessed he didn't take you out, and he tried to blame it on Coach Prime and said the schedule was too tight. So I kind of knew that was coming. I should have warned you about that. But the time that you did spend at practice, Carl, what were some of the takeaways that you had, looking at the game from afar on TV and then coming back to campus and seeing those guys practice?
Well, first off, in Neely's defense, Coach Prime does keep a ridiculous schedule. And I think he keeps us all moving around a little bit while you're there. Everybody has something that they have to do to help the program. So my brother is not at fault on that. From a team standpoint, I think that they were very focused. I was up there USC week, and just the improvement every single day. Just at this point of the season, teams really know who they are. Your identity has been developed. Colorado's identity is built around their quarterback position. So continuing to hone in on those things, continuing to try to fill in some of the holes defensively from a scheme standpoint, personnel standpoint, trying to decide how you're going to attack teams. But these guys are focused and they want to improve. One of the things that I saw is the continued improvement of freshman Cormani McClain, a guy that's been under fire really all year from the way he's kind of prepared. We saw some improved play out of him against USC. And so hopefully he stays on point and stays on target and continues to develop because the team could really use him to be at the top of his game.
You talk about – Neely, I want you to jump in on this, and I want us to toss it back to Carl too. Let's go back to McClain and kind of that up and down ride that you might get, because we did see in that game against Arizona State, he allowed the receiver to, come across his face, and then he was trailing him, across the field like twice, and that, might have got him in the doghouse a little bit. Neely, talk about that ride, that up and down that, 5-star freshman, all that's great, but still a young guy, and you got to kind of ride the wave until he solidifies himself.
It's, no pun intended when I use the term big boys, but this is the big boys. And I'm not talking about the show. I'm talking about college football at this Power 5 level. Excuse me. You see it when guys are great college quarterbacks and they go to the NFL. There are some struggles adjusting to the speed of that game. And when you look at what Kamani McLean accomplished in high school and now coming into college, I don't care if it was the off-season strength and conditioning program to learning a playbook, which is very complicated, as Coach Charles Kelly from Alabama has, that you're going to run into some freshman growing pains. Even simple things of understanding this ain't, 12th grade English class. When class starts at 8, you're actually in the seat at 7:50, versus walking into class as the big man on campus at 8:05. It's just a lot of little nuances and growing pains that he's going through. I'm confident that he's going to grow through them. The coaching staff is not going to let up on him. And he shows those flashes in practice and in games that this guy is who he's advertised to be, but he has to go through those growing pains, man. You just can't hit the ground running, and just think that, hey, man, I was this in high school, I'm going to be this in college. You got to prepare, you got to study, you got to know the playbook, you got to know your assignments, you got to approach it with the right mindset and still understand there are going to be times that even that doesn't get the job done.
Carl, talk about that play because some fans have PTSD when we see that crossing route. That receiver catches the ball and just runs across the field, and that happens a couple of times. Like, oh, no, here we go again with this crossing route.
Well, the crossing route situation is just about whether you play man or zone. And like I said after the Colorado State game, it's just making a decision on how you're going to defend it. And so sometimes when a guy catches the ball on a crossing route, you blaming one guy, but the fans don't really understand that that's really not his job, and he's releasing that play to the other side of the field. But Kamani McLean overall, when you talk about a freshman, what people don't understand is how hard it is to play football. Football is a very, very tough sport at the highest level. And so you're talking about Power 5 college football. There's going to be an adjustment for every single young kid that comes in and plays the game. And the adjustment is not usually physical for guys that are as talented as he is. It's the mental part of the game. It's the studying. It's the film study. It's the schematics. It's the understanding that you have to be able to play more than just man-to-man defense. You have to be able to play 12 to 15 different types of coverages. There's several ways to play cover 3. There's several ways to play cover 4 and match quarters, cover 2, hard 2, cover 2 read. There's a lot of things schematically that you have to learn that's another level than high school. And so as a freshman, he's typically really on schedule to what my expectation would be for a freshman going into a major college football environment, having to play against some of the teams that he's playing against, and having the expectation of playing the position that the greatest corner who's ever played the game, who's coaching you every day, and what his expectation is of a guy that plays that position for him.
Carl, look, dude, get the hammer, get the nail, go ahead, just pound that in, because that you wrapped it up right there. And I got a little challenge on what you said when you talk about those expectations. As far as I'm concerned, taking Kamani, the individual out of it, and just looking at college football, he's exceeded expectations because, hell, he shouldn't even be playing. How many times do you see a true freshman come in and actually get those kind of reps? Because they understand, the coaches understand, just like you said, the learning curve, that person is not ready yet. But because of his physical acumen, because of some injuries we had to deal with, he's been put in a position and given an opportunity, and people are holding him to a standard because he came here as the number one, corner, number one player. But the reality is that it just ain't there yet, and he needs that time. And he's got a head coach, man, only one in America with a gold jacket, so I'm confident that it'll happen. And Tolly, speaking of those crossing routes that Coach Reed just nailed, talking about the different coverages, one of the things we also have to appreciate is that the quarterback on the opposing team, he can also hear what the defense is saying. And more importantly, he can hear what the defense is not saying. So when you have a person that's handing off a route, if you will, to the next person behind him, and the quarterback sees pre-snap that they're not communicating, you're going to get a crossing route, because to defend that type of play, It takes communication from the defense, and that's something that you also have to learn when you're young, and also have to learn when you have a unit out there who haven't played a lot together because of different schematics, different matchups, different injuries, that you have to communicate on defense if you're going to consistently stop that route.
Can I just take a moment to say this right here? That boy good. That boy is good. Did you hear that analysis? Look, Neely, there are people on TV, man, who have played in the NFL who just don't make it that simple. That Neely, you know, I always give you a hard time out of love, man. That might have been like the coolest thing I've heard you say all season long. It was really good.
It's the Grapefruit League. It was set up by Coach Reed, man, because he talked about how complex these coverages are. And let me tell the listening audience out there, you heard everything Coach Reed said about the different variations of clouds and cover twos. Then when you add in a Charles Kelly, it's even more complicated. Like, there are pages upon pages of pages in this defensive playbook, man. And it ain't just out there 11 on 11, you know, get the guy in front of you. There's communication, there's trade-off, there's handoffs. Like, it's a complex defense.
And you really have to give it to these athletes. You know, just talk about basketball for a second. You know, we've all seen where, you know, LeBron James will tell the other team, like, no, you just ran that play wrong. Like, you were supposed to be here. And the other guys are looking like, man, how you know our plays? Like, it's a two-way street. So we have to give credit to the level of quarterbacks that this team is playing. And, you know, if you say it or don't say it, you know, they hear it as well. So that's a really good point. Carl, I do not want to get in trouble with Neely. We did a show the other day and we talked for like 45 minutes, our longest show ever. And we did not mention that Coach Prime is going to be on the cover of Time magazine. So I want to say out of Neely's doghouse, and I want to toss that to you, Carl. Man, I mean, not only is it hard to play college football, it's hard to break through the noise when you're not in the Deep South. I mean, you're in Colorado, a team that has been forgotten for many, many years. And for Coach Prime to every week, and it really is a testament to how great he has been. Like, oh, yeah, he was on time. Oh, God, you know, he does so many things every week. We kind of, you know, accidentally forgot about it. But just talk about another significant milestone, Carl, of Coach Prime and the notoriety that he's bringing back to this program in Boulder.
Well, he is who he is, you know, and so because he is who he is, he's going to be with him everywhere he goes. Anything that he touches has turned to gold. And every single thing that he does is going to be top billing. And so he's built this program already into a national media darling. Look at the ratings that have been coming out. What is it? 4 of the top 5 most watched games this year. The viewership, the sponsorship, and the finances. And I'm going to say something that some people think is crazy. I think his next contract has to be $200 million or better. That's the type of, I think he's going to completely move the needle in the way that coaches get paid, in the way that you have to evaluate what he's brought to the table in terms of ticket sales, sponsorship, advertising, and viewership, new enrollment to the school. I think $200 million is the number that Coach Prime should be looking for on his next re-up.
You know, Carl Reed, I can't argue with that. And the reason I can't argue with it is we've seen coaches in this era of football where the number is, you know, 99 to 110 in that range. And they don't bring anything remotely close to what Coach Prime brings to the table as far as media attention, as far as earned media. Is, you know, you look at merchandise sale being up 800%. You look at, man, get this, guys, because this is a school. Enrollment applications up 40%. 40% increase in applications just to attend school here. So it's way bigger than football when you have a Deion Sanders as your head coach. And I think Carl Reed is exactly right that whenever this institution starts talking about extensions, or you look at what happens with the next contract, I think the needle has moved far beyond what we can comprehend as far as the history of coaching salaries, because you have a man who is doing things that have not been done before. He's going to have to be compensated in ways that haven't been done before.
All right, Neely.
Dig in your pockets.
Go ahead.
Dig in your pockets. Dig deep in your pockets. $200 million. That's got to be the number.
Neely, you've had a chance, obviously, with boots on the ground more than either of us there in Boulder. Did they know it was going to be like this or were they just taking a flyer like, look, we got to do something totally different? What is your sense of how they are accepting this ROI and just the way this whole thing is played out so quickly?
You know, I happen to be a Dallas Cowboys fan for all my life.
Even this weekend?
One of the things, yeah, even after this weekend, been through that before. One of the things that people don't appreciate is that if Roger Staubach was not a Catholic, we wouldn't have the Hail Mary. Because when he threw that ball up and they asked him after the game about the play, he said, man, I just said Hail Mary and let it go. And so now we got a play that's designed off of that. And so to some degree, what Colorado did here under AD Rick George was a Hail Mary. Did not have a lot of choice here. You know, this program has fallen way off. You talk about remembering its glory days. You remember more about the days that weren't than the days that were, because it's been so long since this was a school of prominence in football. Having said that, there was a true belief from AD Rick George that this quote-unquote Hail Mary was going to work. They saw what was accomplished in the SWAC at Jackson State, a small school in a small state, that typically is anywhere between 47th and 50th in any kind of statistical category. Well, what happens if that guy can do all that success there? What if you put him in this environment with these facilities, with these boosters, with everything that we have to help him do his job? Now, whether they knew merchandise was going to be up 800% versus 500%, I don't know. But they knew the stadium was going to be sold out. They knew that we're going to win games sooner than later. And so I don't think it's a big surprise here. I think what is a big surprise is you don't see things like Time Magazine coming, 60 Minutes coming, having College Game Day and Big Noon Kickoff on your campus at the same time. But what Deion Sanders brings to the table, Rick George believed it, and that's why he threw the ball to him.
Neely, what did he say when the reporter asked him, did that whistle work? The whistle he wears around his neck.
So Coach Prime has a new, more diamond-studded whistle versus his gold one gifted from his children. And the reporter said, hey, man, does that whistle work? He said, everything about me works.
And he was not lying. Guys, I think the thing that people miss in just marketing in general, everybody tries to think of the next big thing. How can we make this thing be this or be that? And people don't put enough emphasis on authenticity. And when I see Coach Prime come on TV and, he and Michael Irvin are talking and they start crying and, you see somebody like, Lil Wayne, who from afar you might think, oh, here's this rough and tough guy from the streets. And he talks about what Coach Prime has meant to him as a father figure. Like, you can never go wrong with authenticity because people don't know, they don't know what it takes to make something be, this, shiny package, but they know when it's fake. Like, they don't know what it took to make it fool you, but they know when it's fake. And I just think everything Coach Prime says, whether you like it or not, is just as real as it can be. And there's so much value in that. And Neely, I just don't understand why people don't get that. Just be you.
We live in a world, man, where being you is often, punished and not rewarded, that people have to guard themselves. And you put that same thing, toward anybody, but you put it toward somebody Black and a male in this kind of environment. I mean, we know how to code switch just to survive. We know how to talk this way in the meeting and then get in the elevator with our boys and talk this way after the meeting. Well, Coach Prime is in his world, that he doesn't have to do that. What you see is what you get. He's going to use the same dialect, the same slang, the same jokes, the same way of making his point, the same belief system, as far as his faith is concerned. No matter who's in the room with him, no matter whose room it is, he does not change who he is to placate those around him. You come up to his standard, he doesn't come down to yours. And like you said, Tolly, it ain't fake. It's genuinely how he is, and people see it and they love it and they're pulled toward it. But you still live in a space where, particularly, let's make it is what it is, Black coaches around America, for whatever reasons, and there's a laundry list of them, don't live in that same space. But he is changing the narrative and giving people that confidence, like, nah, man, be you. Because if you're winning and you're changing the lives of these young men and building this program, you can be you. You don't have to change who you are to make other folks comfortable.
Carl, you talk about other Black coaches who have called you earlier in the season. Has your phone still been ringing as this kind of journey continues and plays out in international media?
Absolutely, because one thing that you look at with Coach Prime, and Neely hit it on the head, is he's able to be himself in a way that most guys are not. We live in a world today where being yourself is frowned upon, having a certain way of looking at things, a certain way you talk, a certain way you dress could really put you at the back burner. So most guys are going to try to make themselves more palatable for everybody to be able to deal with. One of the reasons he's been able to excel the way that he has is because he's been able to be himself every day. Most guys are wearing a mask. And when you wear a mask every day, one day you forget to put it on. And that's when all your problems start.
Preach, preacher. Well, if I had a plate, I'd pass it to you. Put something in that, Tyler.
Neely, Carl has given you the opportunity to drop bars twice in the show, and I am so surprised you have not taken advantage of it. He said top billing, and I was waiting for you to come back to say, milk is chilling, Gizmo's chilling.
Yeah, milk is chilling. Yeah, Giz is chilling.
He just gave you the mask on, mask off opportunity. You need the hat, man. I think your hat, when you wear the hat, it keeps you sharper on your
yeah, it probably gets me more in the hip-hop mindset than I do. But, one thing about my brother, Coach Carl Reed, sometimes it's hard to compliment somebody because the world will take it as that you're saying you're surprised. So what he just said did not surprise me. But I was sitting here hanging on every word, man, and I wasn't thinking about my rap dictionary and how he was triggering it. Like, he just told y'all something in. So, you need to stop rewinding and listen to that a couple of times, man, because, one thing about Boulder is located in Colorado, and one thing about Colorado is located in America. And oftentimes in America, that racism is so ingrained in American culture that when you're anti-racism or pro-Black, you come across as anti-American. And Coach Prime just does not give a damn about that. You look at his staff, the general manager, African-American male, the director of player personnel, African-American male, from top to bottom in the staff, still having that diversity. You got an OC and a DC who are white guys. But when you look at the leadership in this staff, here's a Black man who has not hesitated to hire Black people and give Black people opportunities that they would not otherwise have. And so he's showing that, man, you can be authentic. You can be yourself. You don't have to change who you are. In the words of Al Davis, just win, baby.
Absolutely. Winning is something that Colorado hopes to continue, this time on a Friday night. They have the Stanford Cardinal coming into town. Carl, what are your initial thoughts heading into this big matchup with Stanford? Look, me and Neely joked last week, we're getting closer to being bowl eligible. We didn't think you'd want to have any part of that conversation, but it is getting close, Carl.
Protect the quarterback, block and tackle. That's the big thing. Give your quarterback an opportunity to throw, and you'll be right there at the end of the game being able to win it. But it's all coming down to the basics of football, blocking and tackling.
Yeah, well said. And let me tell you this, Tolly. Coach Carl Reed, he's a coach, man. He ain't looking ahead on those schedules. It's 1-0 1 week at a time. He ain't thinking about what 6 wins means. He's thinking about this next win means. But I want to rewind for a win for a second because we cannot understate before we play Stanford what that victory in Arizona State meant. You had lost 2 games in a row, against Oregon, against USC. You go on the road in conference and get out of there with a win, and it's a huge difference psychologically from being 3-3 and 4-2. Now you come home with Stanford coming in on a Friday night. And let me tell you something. The high for Friday is 50 degrees. That game doesn't kick off to 8 p.m. So it's going to be in those 20s and 30s when we play. So it's going to be the first cold game for some of these Florida boys and these Southern guys who come here to play football for Coach Prime. So we're going to look for that impact as well. But now you have an opportunity to go into the bye week with a huge win because that win takes you to 5-2 from a team that was 1-11 last year. And then, as Tyler and I like to look at, that's one win away from being bowl eligible, man. So this Friday night against Stanford is a huge game.
In the words of the great Don King, only in America.
we try to bait Carl, but he's got that foot back, dog. He's got that foot back. He's in coverage, ready to deflect any talk about anything beyond the week that lies ahead. Neely, I think we should check Guinness Book of World Records. Has a team ever in the same week, I'm sure they have, played in above 100-degree weather and freezing weather in a 7-day span? That's kind of weird.
It is, and when we left Boulder going to Arizona, nice, balmy, 62 degrees, sunny days. Get to Arizona, it's 102. That's a 40-degree swing. Played in a basically 100-degree temp for most of that game. Now you're coming home, and it's going to be under 35 degrees at some point during that game this Friday night.
That's a 70-degree switch from Saturday night to Friday night. That is amazing. Wow. Carl, what is your take on Friday night football in college? I know people were all up in arms a couple of years ago.
I hate it. I think Friday's up for high school football. I hate college teams playing on Friday night. I don't know who's responsible for scheduling college teams on Friday night, but I like to have a conversation with them.
I love it, Coach Reed. Check me in that box as well. And Colorado has the advantage or disadvantage, whichever you look at it, that we got 2 Friday night games, one being at home this week against Stanford, and we travel to Pullman, Washington for Washington State. That's as well on a Friday night. And you better damn believe a Friday night in Washington is going to be rainy and cold.
For sure. Carl, how do you think this sets up a Friday night? That gives you an extra day going into the bye week. So you're going to have as pretty much as long of a bye week as you can. You get that extra day in there. How do you see it, Carl? If some people get healed up, the position that Colorado will be in going into the second half of the season coming off a bye?
They'll be in a strong position because you start to get all your guys back healthy and with experience. They've played a lot of football now. We didn't know how the team was going to look before week 1. But now you know who's going to make plays, who you can depend on. And if you get everybody healthy, you got a chance to have to finish out a really special season going down the stretch.
Yes, sir. Like, it's just that simple. You're going to see the best version of Colorado football after the bye. And the reason I say that is when you look at the first 2 or 3 games of this season, the team was new, the team was young, had not played real football together yet. And so although everyone was healthy, the experience was waning. Then you run into the injury bug. Well, after the bye week, again, man, look at USC game. You got 6 guys in the secondary that were out, 4 of which were starters. And look how close that game was. Well, by the time you get to the bye week and beyond it, all those guys are back, not only back, but in game shape because they had some time to practice. Some of them will probably be playing, during this game against Stanford. So get some game legs back under them. So, man, when you come off that bye week and you're headed to UCLA, which is the first game after the bye, you're at full strength, not only in talent-wise and depth-wise, but you're at full strength and experience-wise. And now it's going into that part of the schedule that Carl Reed and Tolly, it just gets tough. Right now, as it sits, the teams that we have left, 4 of them are in the top 15.
They call that the murderer's row that still remains to be played. I want to do something here. I'm just going to talk into the camera for a second. We'll bring the fellows back. By the next time we get together, probably by the next time we do a rewind or the next time we do a Big Boys, our big Uncle Neely should have crossed the 100 subscriber mark on YouTube. He is so close. And I just want to take a moment, Neely, to say how proud and how happy I am for you. I know that the transition when Coach Prime left Jackson State to come to Colorado, I know that wasn't the easiest time in the world for you. And I know you could have said and done a lot of things and Neely just kept it moving. And man, I am just so ecstatic and happy. And the fact that the impact you're making in the media space, and this media space is becoming newer and newer by the day. The way people consume information and the places they get it from is just changing so rapidly. And for you to be on the forefront of that when it comes to college football, and I read the comments, man, and the appreciation and the community that you have built. I just want to take this moment, man, full screen. Uncle Neely, give you your flowers, brother.
Well, I'm going to accept those flowers, Tolly. I did not know you were going to do that. I certainly and sincerely appreciate it. For one, would not be where I am without the partnership that you and I developed with HBCU Game Day in the pregame show when we were at Jackson State. And your growth, helped accelerate ours and frankly show our content, to the East Coast because we were covering SWAC football, which is south. And you were able to take us on up through the Carolinas and D.C. and New York, et cetera. So hats off to you and believing when no one else believed. And I would tell people out there, man, when you're facing some kind of adversity and you're betting on yourself, just keep going. Because, Tyler, when I look at the comments and the content that's produced in August and compare that to the comments that were being made in April, you could not have a more drastic contrast in what people were saying. There was certainly an attack mode. There was an organized attack mode, but we just kept our head down and kept working, man. And to be right here hitting 100,000 subscribers, it's a blessing. I just, thankful to the Lord above for putting me in this position. And one of the things I have always said I'm going to do and have started doing is to give what was given to me. And Coach Prime gave me an opportunity, and I want to give that opportunity to other people. So one of the things you're going to see going forward on the pregame show, which is really going to become more of the pregame show network, is you're going to see programs like the Big Boys. You're going to see programs like the Rewind. You're going to see other folks in this media space that look like us, frankly, getting an opportunity to showcase their talents because it takes time to grow the subscriber base. And a lot of folks may not have that time and that bandwidth. And we're going to help them out, man, and put some other product on this channel because the rising tide truly does lift all boats. And, my grandmama used to say, if you ever see a turtle on top of a fence post, he didn't get there by his damn self. So Coach Prime lifted me up. I'm going to lift some other folks up.
Man, can't follow grandma on that one. That hits it right there. Well, guys, this is my favorite part of the week. You and Carl breaking it down. I know our community out there enjoys it. We're looking forward to another game. And even more content here on the pregame show. If you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping. And Uncle Neely is popping, baby. All right, for Coach Carl, for Uncle Neely, I'm Tolly Carr from Atlanta. We'll see you guys a little later.